I am Sean, 34 years old, and the proud owner of a boutique hotel chain. When my sister Megan invited me to her wedding, I never expected to end up at the infamous budget table in the back corner, far from my own family. I tried to smile through the hurt, reminding myself this was her day, not mine. But everything changed when those glass doors swung open and my hotel staff walked in. Let me tell you what happened next. Before I start my story, where are you watching from today? If you have ever felt undervalued by your own family, hit that like and subscribe button, because trust me, you will love how this story unfolds. Growing up, I was always the practical one in the family. While my sister Megan excelled in academics and brought home perfect report cards, I was busy selling homemade jewelry to classmates and running lemonade stands that actually turned profits. My parents never quite understood my entrepreneurial spirit. They were both professors at the local university, and in their world, success meant degrees and publications, not profit margins and business plans. By the time I turned 25, I had saved enough from various jobs to put a down payment on a small, struggling bed and breakfast on the outskirts of Asheville. Everyone thought I was crazy for dropping my stable marketing job to pursue this dream. My father called it a foolish gamble. My mother gently suggested I reconsider and perhaps pursue an MBA instead. But I knew what I wanted. Those first years were brutal. I worked reception, cleaned rooms, cooked breakfast, and handled maintenance issues, all while learning the business side. Slowly, that run-down 12-room property transformed into Wildflower Inn, a charming destination that started attracting travel bloggers and weekend tourists from all over the East Coast. Within 5 years, I had expanded to 3 properties, each with its own unique charm, but the same dedication to personalized service. What began as a desperate gamble had evolved into Wildflower Collection, a successful boutique hotel chain with 48 employees and growing recognition in the hospitality industry. Throughout this journey, my relationship with my family remained complicated. My parents acknowledged my business was surviving, but always with the undertone that it was just a phase before I would pursue something more substantial. Megan and I grew increasingly distant as she completed her doctorate in biochemistry and began working for a prestigious research institution. Our conversations became surface-level exchanges during holidays, neither of us really understanding the other's world. So, when the embossed wedding invitation arrived in my mailbox, I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Megan was marrying Thomas Preston, whose family apparently owned a series of investment firms across the Southeast. The ceremony would be held at Alpine Ridge Resort, one of the most exclusive venues in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The invitation specified black tie attire and mentioned a weekend of festivities leading up to the main event. I immediately called Megan, genuinely happy for her, but also surprised I was just now hearing about this engagement. "Congratulations. Why did I not know you were even dating someone this serious?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Megan laughed, but it sounded slightly strained. "Well, you know how busy we both are. Thomas and I have been together for about 2 years now. His family is helping with most of the wedding planning, since they have connections everywhere." 2 years? Wow, I had no idea. Tell me about him. As Megan described Thomas, his prestigious education, and his position at his family's company, I noticed she never once asked about my life or business. When I tried to share news about the industry award my flagship property had recently won, she quickly redirected the conversation to wedding details. "That sounds nice. So anyway, the rehearsal dinner will be Friday evening, and you should plan to arrive by 3 to get settled. Thomas's family is very punctual." I pushed aside my disappointment and focused on being supportive, of course. "Is there anything I can help with for the wedding?" There was a slight pause, Actually, everything is already handled by the wedding planner. The Prestons insisted on using their regular event coordinator, but thanks for offering. By the end of the call, it was clear I was merely a guest at this wedding, not an involved sister of the bride. Still, I was determined to make the most of it. Despite the ongoing renovations at my newest property straining my finances, I splurged on a stunning navy blue gown and a generous check as a wedding gift. The week before the wedding, Megan called again with last-minute details. Somewhere between discussing parking arrangements and brunch on Sunday, she casually mentioned Thomas's father is really impressed by people who have made it in the business world. Maybe just, emphasize the business angle of your hotels rather than the hospitality side. He values people who think big. My business is hospitality, Megan, I replied, confused by the suggestion. I know, I just mean maybe talk about expansion plans or revenue projections, things businessmen understand. Not just about making guests comfortable in the local tourism scene. It was then I realized my sister was embarrassed by my business. In her eyes, and apparently her future in-laws, my boutique hotels were not impressive enough. I was not impressive enough. Despite this realization, I packed my bags and prepared for the weekend. Family is family, I told myself. I would go support my sister, and maybe even network a bit. After all, I had built something from nothing, and nobody could take that away from me. Alpine Ridge Resort was even more impressive than its website suggested. Nestled among towering pines with panoramic mountain views, the sprawling complex featured stone and timber architecture that somehow managed to look both rustic and luxurious. As I pulled up to the valet in my practical 5-year-old Subaru, I felt acutely aware of the Jaguars and Mercedes surrounding me. The lobby soared 3 stories high, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a massive stone fireplace. The check-in desk was carved from a single piece of local oak, and the staff wore crisp uniforms that probably cost more than what I paid my front desk employees in a week. "Welcome to Alpine Ridge, Miss Miller," the receptionist said, smoothly, after I gave my name. "We have you in one of our forest view rooms. The Preston wedding party has a welcome basket waiting for you in your accommodation." My room was beautiful, but noticeably smaller than what I glimpsed through other open doors as I walked down the hallway. The welcome basket contained a weekend itinerary, locally made chocolates, and a bottle of mid-range wine. I quickly freshened up and changed for the rehearsal dinner, which according to the schedule would begin in the Grand Terrace in 30 minutes. The Grand Terrace was already buzzing with people when I arrived. I spotted Megan immediately looking radiant in a white cocktail dress surrounded by a group of well-dressed people I did not recognize. Our parents stood nearby, my father uncomfortable in his suit, but my mother clearly enjoying the upscale atmosphere. "Sean," Megan exclaimed when she saw me breaking away from her group. Her hug was quick and slightly distracted. "I am so glad you made it. Come meet Thomas and his parents." Thomas Preston was tall, conventionally handsome, and had the confident demeanor of someone who had never worried about money. His handshake was firm, his smile practiced. "Megan has mentioned you run some kind of bed and breakfast." "Actually, I own Wildflower Collection. We have 3 boutique hotels currently, with a 4th under renovation," I corrected gently. "How quaint," his mother Elaine Preston interjected. She was impeccably dressed in what I recognized as a designer outfit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. "We just returned from the Ritz in Paris. Now that is what I call a proper hotel experience." "Boutique hotels serve a different market," I explained. "We focus on personalized service and authentic local experiences rather than standardized luxury." Thomas's father, Richard Preston, looked me over with an assessing gaze. "Interesting little niche. Is there much profit in that sort of thing?" Before I could answer, Megan jumped in. Sean has always been creative with her little business ventures. Remember that jewelry phase in high school, Mom? My mother laughed. Oh yes, she was always making something or selling something. I felt my achievements being diminished, transformed from a legitimate business success into a cute hobby. Still, I smiled and changed the subject, asking Thomas about his work. For the next hour, I circulated through the party, making small talk and trying to find common ground with Megan's friends and Thomas's relatives. Each conversation seemed to follow the same pattern. People would ask what I did, I would explain my hotel business, and they would respond with either condescending interest or barely concealed dismissal before steering the conversation toward what they clearly considered more impressive: careers. During dinner, I was seated at a table with distant cousins, while Megan, our parents, and the Prestons occupied the central table. As servers poured expensive wine and delivered gourmet courses, I overheard snippets of conversation from nearby tables. The sister is in hospitality, I think. Not quite the same caliber as the Prestons, obviously. Megan told me her sister runs some tourist inns. Sweet that she is trying to be a businesswoman. The most painful moment came when I stepped away to use the restroom and overheard Megan speaking to Elaine Preston in a quiet hallway. I apologize for my sister's small business talk. She means well, but she does not quite understand the level of success your family is accustomed to discussing. No need to apologize, dear. Not everyone in a family can be equally accomplished. Thomas mentions your research work is quite promising. I slipped back to my table, without them noticing me, a knot forming in my stomach. The evening continued with speeches about the couple, none of which mentioned me, despite several references to Megan's parents and their academic backgrounds. As the evening wound down, the wedding coordinator, a sharp-featured woman named Veronica, approached me with a clipboard. So you are the sister of the bride. Just to confirm, you will not be part of the formal wedding party, correct? That is right, I answered, surprised by the question. Megan had not asked me to be a bridesmaid, which had hurt, but which I had accepted given our distant relationship. Perfect. Just checking, since you are not on my processional list. The bride mentioned you would be handling your own preparations tomorrow. Even the wedding coordinator seemed to be emphasizing my outsider status. I returned to my room that night, questioning why I had come at all. As I lay in the unfamiliar bed, I scrolled through emails on my phone, finding comfort in updates from my hotel managers. At least in that world, my work had value. My achievements meant something. I considered leaving early, making an excuse about a business emergency. But family is family, I reminded myself again. I would stay for Megan. I would smile and be supportive and not make waves. Tomorrow was her day, not mine. Morning arrived with perfect weather for a wedding. Sunlight streamed through mountain mist, creating an ethereal backdrop for the ceremony. I spent extra time on my appearance, carefully applying makeup and styling my hair before slipping into my navy gown. The wedding was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon, but I headed to Megan's suite at 11, as she had requested some family support while getting ready. The bridal suite was chaotic with activity. A makeup artist worked on one bridesmaid while a hairstylist attended to another. Megan sat in a plush robe, looking simultaneously excited and stressed. Sean, finally. Can you help check on the flowers? The coordinator said they arrived, but I want to make sure the bouquets have the right ribbon. I spent the next hour running various errands, checking on flowers, delivering messages to the groomsmen, and helping my mother with her troublesome zipper. Despite not being in the official wedding party, I found myself acting as an unofficial assistant, handling the small emergencies that inevitably arise on wedding days. Just as I finished helping the makeup artist locate a missing eyeshadow palette, the photographer arrived to begin formal photos. Okay, let us start with the bride and her immediate family, the photographer announced, setting up his equipment. I stepped forward with my parents, but Veronica, the coordinator, quickly intervened. Actually, we are doing parents first, then the wedding party. Family photos with extended family will be later. I am her sister, I said, confused. Veronica glanced at her clipboard. Right, but for the formal portraits, we are following the list the bride approved. Parents only for this set. I looked at Megan, who was busy having her veil adjusted. She glanced up looking flustered. It is just for the album sequence, Sean. We will do casual family photos at the reception. Swallowing my hurt, I stepped back and watched as my parents posed with Megan, followed by Thomas's family, then the bridesmaids. No casual family photos materialized before it was time for the ceremony. The wedding itself was undeniably beautiful. The resort had set up an elegant arrangement of white chairs on their manicured lawn, with the misty mountains providing a stunning natural backdrop. An arch of white roses and greenery marked the altar space, and string musicians played softly as guests were seated. I found myself directed to a seat in the middle rows, not with the family at the front. As Megan walked down the aisle on our father's arm, looking radiant in her designer gown, I felt a genuine swell of happiness for her, despite everything. Whatever our differences, she was my sister, and she deserved this joy. The ceremony was brief but touching. The couple had written their own vows, and I found myself blinking back unexpected tears as they pledged their lives to each other. In that moment, the slights and oversights of the weekend faded away. This was why I had come, after all. After the ceremony, guests were directed to a cocktail hour on the resort's lower terrace, while the wedding party took more photos. I mingled, awkwardly recognizing few people and finding most engrossed in their existing social circles. Eventually, servers began guiding everyone toward the grand ballroom for the reception. At the entrance stood an elegant display of escort cards on a bed of white rose petals. I located the card with my name and read Table 19. Looking at the ballroom layout displayed nearby, I realized with a sinking feeling that Table 19 was in the far back corner, practically adjacent to the kitchen doors. When I entered the ballroom, my suspicions were confirmed. The head table stood on a slight platform at the front, surrounded by tables numbered 1 through 8 that seated the Prestons' friends and business associates. Tables 9 through 14 contained Thomas's extended family. Tables 15 through 18 held my parents and our closer relatives. And then there was Table 19, so far removed from the central action of the reception that it felt like being in a different event entirely. As I approached, I saw my table mates were an eclectic mix. A distant cousin of Thomas, whom no one had spoken to in years, a college friend of Megan's who had shown up without RSVPing, an elderly great-aunt who was hard of hearing, and 2+1s who looked as uncomfortable as I felt. "You must be the sister," the elderly aunt said loudly as I took my seat. "Bit strange they put you back here with us misfits, is it not?" I forced a smile. I am sure it was just a matter of fitting everyone in. As servers delivered the first course, I noticed a group of Megan's friends from graduate school being seated at table 15, much closer to the action. My parents were at table 10, integrated with the Preston family circle. The message could not have been clearer. I was an afterthought in my own sister's wedding. My suspicions were painfully confirmed when I went to the bar for a much-needed glass of wine and overheard a conversation between Megan and one of her bridesmaids near the ladies' room. "Why did you put your sister all the way back there?" the bridesmaid asked. Megan sighed. Thomas's mom handled the seating chart. She put people together based on, well, similar backgrounds and such. Table 19 is kind of the budget table. People who had to be invited but do not really fit anywhere else. The budget table. The words stung more than I wanted to admit. I slipped away before they could see me returning to my assigned place in the back corner. As I picked at my salad, I checked my phone, finding several messages from Jackson, my manager, at the flagship wildflower property. Need to speak with you when possible. VIP group checking in asking specifically for the owner. They're insisting on meeting you personally. Very high profile. Call when you can. Important opportunity. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway to return the call. Jackson, what is going on? Who is this? VIP. Sean, you are not going to believe this. Richard Johnson and his executive team from Johnson Hotel Group are here. They saw our feature in Travel Monthly about the renovation concept and detoured to see the property in person. They are interested in discussing potential acquisition or partnership. My heart skipped a beat. Johnson Hotel Group was one of the most respected names in upscale hospitality, known for identifying and investing in promising boutique brands while maintaining their unique character. Are you serious? Johnson himself is there? In the flesh. They love what they have seen so far and want to meet the owner. I told them you were at a family wedding, but would be available tomorrow. But Sean, they specifically asked if there was any way to connect today. Apparently, they are on a tight schedule. I glanced back at the reception through the doorway. At the front, Thomas's father was beginning a toast, gesturing grandly, as he spoke about successful families coming together. My table in the back was so far removed that his words were barely audible. Give me 30 minutes, I decided suddenly. I need to make arrangements, but tell them I will connect today. After ending the call, I stood in the hallway considering my options. I could leave the wedding early, drive the 2 hours back to my hotel, and meet with the Johnson team in person. But that would mean giving up completely on connecting with my family this weekend. Or I could stay and find another solution. Making my decision, I called Jackson back. Here is what we are going to do. As Thomas's father finished his toast about merging two dynasties, I settled back at table 19 with a fresh perspective. The Johnson Hotel Group's interest changed everything. After 4 years of building my brand from nothing, one of the most respected names in the industry wanted to talk partnership. They had recognized the value in what I had created, even if my own family had not. My tablemates were engaged in awkward small talk about the weather and the mountain views. The elderly great-aunt was complaining that she could barely hear the speeches from our distant location. I checked my watch, knowing my plan was now in motion. A server approached our table with the main course, looking harried as she balanced multiple plates. Sorry for the delay. The kitchen prioritized the front tables first. Even the catering staff knew we were the afterthoughts. I smiled politely and used the opportunity to start a real conversation with my tablemates. If we were the misfits table, we might as well embrace it. So how do you all know the bride and groom? I asked, genuinely curious about who else had been relegated to the back corner. The stories that emerged were fascinating. The elderly aunt had once loaned Thomas's father money to start his first business, a fact the Prestons apparently preferred to forget. The college friend had been Megan's roommate before Megan transferred to a more prestigious program, effectively leaving her behind. The cousin had chosen a career in public service rather than joining the family business, making him something of an outcast. We were the people who did not fit the Preston narrative of success and status. As we shared our stories, I found myself liking these authentic people far more than the polished crowd at the front tables. My phone buzzed with a text from Jackson. Documents prepared. Team leaving in 10 minutes. Across the ballroom, I could see my parents engaged in animated conversation with the Prestons, looking more comfortable than they had all weekend. Megan and Thomas moved between tables greeting guests, but I noticed they had not yet made it past table 14. At this rate, they might never make it to our back corner. A server approached with champagne for the upcoming toasts. As she filled glasses, I checked my Instagram account and noticed something surprising. The post my marketing director had made yesterday about our recent service award had gone viral in the hospitality community. Industry leaders were commenting and sharing, including several tags to the Johnson Hotel Group. No wonder they had shown up unannounced. My little hobby business had caught the attention of one of the biggest names in luxury hospitality. Just as the best man rose to begin his toast, my phone rang. Excusing myself once again, I stepped into the hallway to take the call. "Miss Miller, this is Richard Johnson, of Johnson Hotel Group." "Mr. Johnson, it is an honor. I understand you are visiting my flagship property." "Indeed, and I must say I am impressed. Your renovation concept perfectly aligns with where we see the boutique luxury market heading. Your manager mentioned you are at a family event." "My sister's wedding," I confirmed. "I apologize for the intrusion, but we are on a tight schedule. We are prepared to discuss preliminary terms for a potential partnership that would maintain your creative control while providing capital for accelerated expansion. My team has prepared some initial paperwork. Would it be possible to review this with you before we depart for New York tomorrow?" The opportunity was too important to miss. 4 years of 18-hour days, maxed-out credit cards, and relentless dedication had led to this moment. "Actually, Mr. Johnson, I have arranged for my executive team to bring the necessary materials to me. They should be arriving shortly, and we can discuss terms via conference call while they are here." "Excellent. I look forward to connecting later today." As I ended the call, I saw Veronica, the wedding coordinator, giving me a disapproving look for being on the phone during the reception. I smiled sweetly and returned to my table, where the best man's toast was wrapping up to appreciative laughter from the front of the room. The next 30 minutes passed slowly. I watched as Megan and Thomas cut their cake beautiful and towering, with fondant flowers cascading down its 6 tiers. Servers distributed slices once again, starting from the front tables. By the time our table was served, the couple had moved on to their first dance. Then, just as the father-daughter dance was concluding, I noticed a commotion at the ballroom entrance. 4 people in crisp black suits with subtle Wildflower Collection logos had arrived, carrying leather portfolios and looking professionally purposeful. The maitre d' intercepted them immediately, his expression shifting from initial dismissal to sudden alertness. I could not hear the exchange, but his body language changed dramatically as one of my team members showed him something on a tablet. The maitre d' scanned the room urgently, his eyes finally landing on table 19. He rushed over, practically knocking over a floral arrangement in his haste. "Miss Miller," he said, breathlessly loud enough for nearby tables to hear, "I sincerely apologize. We had no idea the owner of Wildflower Collection was attending as a guest. Your team has arrived with urgent business matters. Shall I prepare the private dining room for your meeting?" All conversations at nearby tables suddenly stopped. Heads turned in our direction. "That would be perfect, thank you," I replied calmly, though my heart was racing. As I stood, I noticed Thomas's parents staring in obvious confusion. The father whispered something to a server, who hurried over to the maitre d' and then rushed back, obviously sharing information about who exactly I was. My professional team approached each of them, carrying themselves with the polished confidence I had worked hard to instill as our brand standard. "Miss Miller, "We have the Johnson Group partnership documents for your review," my legal director stated clearly. "Mr. Johnson is available for video conference at your convenience to discuss the 8-figure acquisition offer." The words, "8-figure acquisition offer," seemed to echo in the suddenly quiet section of the ballroom. I glanced toward the head table and saw Megan frozen in place, her face as white as her dress. The private dining room was quickly transformed into an impromptu meeting space. The maitre d' personally supervised as servers brought in freshwater coffee and a selection of desserts from the reception. My team set up a laptop for the video conference while I reviewed the preliminary documents they had brought. Through the glass doors, I could see curious guests stealing glances our way. The Prestons were in an intense conversation with the wedding coordinator, who kept looking in my direction with a flustered expression. My marketing director, Alicia, gave me a quick briefing. The Johnson team was extremely impressed with our occupancy rates and guest satisfaction scores. They specifically mentioned the sustainable renovation approach as being aligned with their future vision. The initial offer is for $12 million, with retention of creative control and expansion capital. Before I could fully process this information, there was a knock at the door. The maitre d' entered looking simultaneously impressed and uncomfortable. "Miss Miller, the father of the groom, would like a moment of your time, if possible." I nodded, and Richard Preston entered, his commanding presence filling the room. He looked at my assembled team with new interest before turning to me. "I seem to have made an embarrassing error in judgment," he began, his tone carefully modulated. "Thomas mentioned his sister-in-law owned some properties, but I had no idea we were talking about Wildflower Collection. Your Asheville property was featured in Business Travel last month, was it not?" "Yes, after our sustainability initiative won the Industry Innovation Award, I confirmed." He nodded thoughtfully. "Johnson Group has excellent market instincts. If they are interested, you must be doing something right. Perhaps we could discuss potential synergies with some of my investment portfolio over brunch tomorrow." The transformation was remarkable. Gone was the dismissive attitude, replaced by calculated interest, now that he realized I might have business value to him. "I appreciate the interest, Mr. Preston, but my schedule tomorrow will depend on how today's negotiations proceed. Now, if you will excuse me, I need to prepare for my video conference." As he left, I heard a commotion outside. Through the glass, I could see Megan arguing with her new mother-in-law, gesturing repeatedly toward the private dining room. Finally, she broke away and approached, still in her wedding gown, looking distressed. When she entered, her eyes widened at the professional setup and my assembled executive team. "Sean, what is going on? You left the reception without saying anything, and now Mother Preston is talking about some hotel deal." "I am sorry for the timing, Megan," I said sincerely. "A major business opportunity came up unexpectedly. The Johnson Hotel Group is interested in acquiring a stake in Wildflower Collection." "Johnson Group," she repeated, looking stunned. "Like the luxury hotel chain, they want to buy your bed and breakfasts." "Boutique hotels," Alicia corrected automatically. "And yes, they have expressed interest in our unique market position and growth potential. They are offering an 8-figure partnership deal." Megan sank into a chair, the voluminous skirt of her wedding dress pooling around her. 8 figures, as in millions. I nodded, feeling a complex mix of pride and sadness that this was what it took for my sister to see my success. "But you never said. I thought it was just a small local business," she continued visibly, trying to reconcile this new information with her previous perception. "It started that way," I acknowledged. "But we have grown considerably over the past 4 years. We now employ 48 people across 3 properties, with a 4th under renovation." The conversation was interrupted as the maître returned, this time accompanied by Thomas and both sets of parents. They entered with the awkward energy of people who knew they were intruding but felt entitled to do so anyway. "There seems to be quite a situation developing," my mother said, looking around at my team with newfound curiosity. "The Prestons tell us you are in some sort of business negotiation. Johnson Group is offering to acquire a significant stake in Sean's hotel chain," Thomas explained before I could answer clearly, having been briefed by his father. "Apparently, it is quite successful." The look of surprise on my parents' faces made it clear that despite years of Christmas dinner updates and email newsletters about my business milestones, they had never truly understood what I had built. "Is this true?" my father asked directly. "Yes," I confirmed simply. "They are interested in partnering to expand Wildflower Collection nationally while maintaining our brand identity and my creative direction." Elaine Preston stepped forward, her entire demeanor transformed. "Well, this is wonderful news. Though perhaps we should continue the celebration at the reception, I am sure we can find more suitable seating arrangements." The statement hung in the air, its implication unmistakable. Now that I had proven my worth in terms, they understood I was suddenly deserving of better treatment. Before I could respond, my legal director intervened smoothly. "I apologize, but Miss Miller's video conference with Mr. Johnson is scheduled to begin in 5 minutes. Perhaps we could reconvene after the business matters are concluded." Of course, Richard Preston agreed quickly. "Business first always. Megan Thomas, shall we give your sister some privacy for her negotiations?" As they turned to leave, Megan lingered, looking torn between her wedding reception and this unexpected window into my professional life. "We will talk later," I assured her. "This is your day. Go enjoy it." After they left, my team exchanged glances that spoke volumes. They had witnessed the dynamic firsthand and understood more than I had revealed about my family situation. "Should we reschedule with Johnson?" Alicia asked quietly. "No," I decided firmly. "Let us proceed as planned. This deal represents 4 years of hard work, and it deserves my full attention." As my team prepared for the video call, I felt a strange sense of peace settling over me. For years, I had sought validation from my family, hoping they would see the value in my chosen path. Now that external recognition had forced them to acknowledge my success, I realized that their validation was no longer what I needed. The laptop chimed with an incoming video call. I straightened my shoulders, smoothed my navy gown, and prepared to negotiate the next chapter of my business journey right here in the middle of my sister's wedding reception. The video conference with Richard Johnson lasted 45 minutes. Throughout the call, I maintained my professional composure, asking detailed questions about their expansion vision and negotiating key points about creative control. By the end, we had agreed on preliminary terms that exceeded my wildest expectations, $14 million for a 40% stake, with guaranteed funding for 5 new properties over 3 years and complete retention of my position as creative director. As my team packed up their materials, I signed the preliminary intent documents, my signature feeling momentous on the heavy paper. What had started as a dream and a maxed-out credit card was now valued at $35 million. "We will finalize the details next week," my legal director confirmed. "Congratulations, Sean. This is well-deserved." I thanked my team, asking them to return to the hotel to brief the staff on the exciting developments. As they departed, I stood alone in the private dining room, gathering my thoughts before returning to the reception. Before I could leave, the door opened, and Megan slipped in, still in her wedding gown, but looking somehow smaller than she had during the ceremony. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. I nodded, gesturing to the chairs. She sat carefully arranging her dress around her. I owe you an apology. She began looking directly at me for what felt like the first time in years. Several apologies, actually. You do not need to do this now, I said. This is your wedding day. That is exactly why I need to do this now. She twisted her new wedding ring nervously. I have been terrible to you, Sean. The seating arrangement, not asking you to be a bridesmaid, all of it. I let the Prestons and their status consciousness influence how I treated my own sister. The raw honesty in her voice caught me by surprise. Why did you do it? I asked, simply. Megan sighed deeply. It is going to sound so petty when I say it out loud. I was jealous, I think, and intimidated by the Prestons and their world. Jealous. Of me, I could not hide my surprise. You are the one with the doctorate, the prestigious research position. You married into this wealthy family. What could you possibly be jealous of? Your freedom, she answered immediately. Your courage. You always knew what you wanted and went after it, consequences be damned. Do you know how many nights I have lain awake wondering if I chose my career path because I loved it or because it was what everyone expected of me? I had never considered this perspective. In my mind, Megan had always been the golden child, the one who effortlessly met our parents' expectations. I always thought you had it all figured out, I admitted. I was going through the motions, she confessed. Excellence was expected, so I delivered it. But you built something from nothing because you were passionate about it. And now look what you have created. She gestured toward the signed documents on the table. When Thomas's father came back to the reception talking about millions of dollars and a national hotel group, I realized I had been dismissing your achievements without ever really understanding them. Tears welled in her eyes, threatening her carefully applied makeup. And the worst part is, I knew better. I knew you were working incredibly hard. I just never took the time to really see what you were building. It was easier to file you away as my impractical sister with her little ins than to acknowledge that you might be succeeding on your own terms. Her honesty broke something open between us, creating space for my own truth. It hurt being seated at the back, I admitted quietly. Hearing you call it the budget table hurt even more. Megan winced. God, I cannot believe you heard that. I was just trying to fit in with Thomas's world. His mother made the seating chart, and I did not challenge it because I was so worried about making a good impression. It was cowardly and cruel, and I am truly sorry. Just then, there was another knock at the door. Thomas entered, looking concerned. Everything okay in here? Seeing Megan's tears, he quickly came to her side. What is wrong? I am just apologizing to my sister for being a terrible person, Megan said with a watery laugh. Thomas looked at me solemnly. I owe you an apology too. I should have pushed back when my parents made assumptions about you and your business. The truth is, I barely paid attention when Megan mentioned what you did. That was my loss, and I am sorry. His sincerity seemed genuine. I nodded, accepting his apology. My parents can be. He hesitated, searching for the right word. Status conscious, I suggested. He laughed. That is putting it kindly. But they are not bad people, just products of their environment, and they are thoroughly impressed now for what that is worth. Not much, I admitted honestly. I did not build my business to impress anyone. Which is probably why it is impressive, he observed thoughtfully. Look, I know this is awkward timing, but would you consider coming back to the reception, not because of the Johnson deal, but because you are Megan's sister and an important part of this day? Megan looked at me hopefully. Please, I know I do not deserve it, but I would really like my sister there for the rest of my wedding. The sincerity in her voice reached me. Despite everything, she was still my sister, and this was still her wedding day. Of course I will come back, I agreed. As we prepared to return to the reception, my parents appeared at the door looking uncertain. "There you all are," my mother said. "We were wondering what was happening." My father stepped forward, uncharacteristically emotional. "Sean, I need to say something. I have never understood your business. Hotels, hospitality, it all seemed so intangible to me. I like things I can measure and quantify." "I know, Dad. But that was my failing, not yours," he continued. "I was afraid to show interest because I did not want to reveal how little I understood. It was easier to dismiss it as a small business than to admit I could not grasp what you were building." His confession stunned me. My father, the mathematics professor who always had all the answers, admitting he had been afraid of not understanding. "And now this Johnson company wants to invest millions," my mother added, shaking her head in wonder. "We had no idea, Sean. All those updates you sent, those milestones you shared. We never quite put it together into the bigger picture." "I would like to see your hotels," my father said suddenly. "Properly see them, I mean. Not just a quick tour, but really understand what you have created." The offer meant more than any belated congratulations. "I would like that," I said sincerely. Megan touched my arm gently. "We should get back. They will be serving dessert soon, and I think there has been a slight change to the seating arrangements." Together we walked back to the ballroom, where the celebration continued in full swing. As we entered, I noticed the maitre directing staff, who were hurriedly relocating my table 19 settings to a newly arranged table at the front, not far from the head table. Elaine Preston approached immediately, all smiles and warmth, where before there had been only cool assessment. "Sean, darling, we have rearranged things a bit. It seems ridiculous to have families seated so far back. Does it not? A simple oversight in the planning." I could have called out the transparent attempt to save face, but what would be the point? Instead, I smiled politely and thanked her for the consideration. As I moved toward my new seat, I made a detour to table 19, where my former table mate still Saturday. "Would you all care to join me up front?" I asked. "Apparently, there has been a change of plans, and I would appreciate the company of people who were kind to me before I became suddenly interesting." The elderly great-aunt cackled with delight. "Oh, I would not miss this for the world. Help me up, dear." Together, my band of misfits relocated to the front of the room, much to the poorly concealed consternation of Elaine Preston. As we settled in with champagne and cake, the great-aunt leaned over with a wicked gleam in her eye. "You know, I loaned Richard Preston $20,000 to start his first business back in the 70s. He conveniently forgets that part of the family history. Perhaps I should remind him during my toast." For the first time that weekend, I laughed freely and genuinely. I think that would make this wedding truly memorable. 6 months after Megan's wedding, I stood in the lobby of the newest wildflower property, surveying the final touches being added before our grand opening. The partnership with Johnson Hotel Group had accelerated our expansion beyond my wildest dreams, with 3 new locations already in development beyond this one. The lobby featured local artwork and sustainable materials, hallmarks of the brand I had built from nothing. Sunlight streamed through the skylights, illuminating the reception area where my staff were training for opening day. My phone buzzed with a text from Megan. "Just checked in. This place is absolutely stunning." After the wedding, we had begun the slow work of rebuilding our relationship. Weekly phone calls had gradually evolved into genuine conversations rather than polite exchanges of information. For the first time in years, we were making an effort to understand each other's worlds. Megan and Thomas were our first official guests, arriving for the soft opening weekend before the general public. Their support meant more than I could express, especially since Thomas had helped connect me with sustainable suppliers through his business network without any of his father's previous condescension. As I headed toward their room to greet them personally, I reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. The Johnson partnership had brought expansion, capital, and valuable industry connections, but more importantly, it had brought a sense of external validation that finally allowed my family to see my work clearly. My parents had visited my flagship property a month after the wedding, spending 3 days exploring every aspect of the hotel. My father had asked detailed questions about occupancy rates and revenue models, finally engaging with my business on its own terms. My mother had marveled at the guest experience details I had implemented, recognizing the creativity and care that went into each decision. "There they are," Megan called, waving, as she and Thomas emerged from the elevator into the lobby. She embraced me warmly, a far cry from the quick, distracted hug at her rehearsal dinner. "This place is incredible, Sean. I cannot believe how quickly you put it all together." "The mountain views from our suite are spectacular," Thomas added, "and that rainfall shower might be the best I have ever experienced." High praise from someone who has stayed at hotels all over the world. I teased, leading them toward the restaurant for lunch. As we settled at a table overlooking the property's landscaped gardens, Megan grew more serious. "I have been thinking a lot about the wedding," she said, "about how it took outside validation for all of us to see what you had built." "That is often how it works in families," I admitted. "Sometimes we get locked into old perceptions of each other." "Well, I am done with that," she declared firmly. "From now on, I want to know what is really happening in your life, not just what I assume is happening." Thomas nodded in agreement. "My parents send their regards, by the way. My father keeps telling his golf buddies that he always saw the potential in the boutique hotel market." We all laughed at the transparent revision of history. Richard Preston had indeed come around, eventually investing in one of our development projects, though I had been careful to maintain boundaries and independence. "How does it feel?" Megan asked, as we enjoyed our lunch. "Having everyone finally recognize what you have accomplished?" I considered the question carefully. Honestly, it is nice, but it is not why I do this. The external validation matters less than I thought it would. "What does matter?" she pressed. "Building something meaningful. Creating spaces where people feel welcome and valued. Leading a team that takes pride in their work." I gestured around us at the staff preparing for opening day. Many of these people have been with me since the beginning, when we were just one small property struggling to make payroll. Their belief in the vision meant more than any outside recognition. Over the course of the weekend, I gave Megan and Thomas the full guest experience, from spa treatments to the special farm to table dinner service we had developed. On their final evening, my parents joined us, making it the first time in years our whole family had gathered outside of a holiday or formal occasion. As we shared dessert and coffee in the hotel's fireside lounge, my father raised his cup in a toast. "To Sean, who taught us all an important lesson about recognizing value in unexpected places." "And to family," my mother added, "who sometimes take the longest to see what has been right in front of them all along." Later, after everyone had retired to their rooms, I took a solitary walk through the property. The night was clear, stars visible above the mountains surrounding us. In the quiet darkness, I reflected on the lessons of the past year. I had learned that family sometimes struggles to see us clearly because their vision is clouded by history and expectations. I had learned that external validation can open doors but cannot provide lasting fulfillment. Most importantly, I had learned that standing in your truth, even when others dismiss it, is the foundation of authentic success. The journey had not been easy. There had been moments of doubt, times when the dismissal of my family had cut deeply. But through it all, I had continued building one room, one property, one guest experience at a time. And in the end, what I had created spoke for itself. As I prepare to open our newest property tomorrow, I am reminded of how far we have come. Have you ever had to prove your worth to the people who should have believed in you from the start? Leave a comment below and share your experience. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that their path has value even when others do not see it yet. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And remember, the most important validation is the one you give yourself when you look in the mirror and know you have built something true.